During this lesson you will be required to fill out a worksheet. I recommend you read through the worksheet before viewing the lesson. In order to give you time to do this, you can use the pause button at the bottom of the screen. Learning outcomes. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to state where an expansion joint should be used in paving, describe what the reinstatement of paving is, describe what the difference between rigid paving and flexible paving is, state the average depth of hardcore required for a domestic paved driveway, and state the average depth of bedding sand required for a domestic paved driveway. Expansion joints. Expansion joints should be inserted where the base and the paved surface meets any walling, piers, columns, or in any area that exceeds 6 metres in any direction. They should be filled with a polysulfide sealant. Note, these are only required where a concrete base is used, therefore, when using rigid paving. The reinstatement of paving. Brick paving may need to be lifted over the course of its lifetime for various different reasons, such as the laying of new cables or drainage. It is of vital importance that the paving should show no signs of this work. Therefore, care should be taken when removing the pavers, as they are required to be placed back in their original position. The term used for this is the reinstatement of pavers, when paving is taken out and then reinstated. Methods of laying pavers. There are two ways of laying pavers. The first one is rigid paving, and the second is flexible paving. Rigid paving. An example of rigid paving can be seen in the diagram opposite. Rigid or solid paving. This requires a concrete base slab 100 mm thick to be laid on top of 150 mm of compacted hardcore. So we can see in the diagram we have 150 mm of compacted hardcore with a 100 mm slab of concrete on top of it. Then our pavers are laid on top of that. This method is normally used on areas of heavy traffic, so for example on roads or in bus stations. So after your concrete slab is laid, then the pavers can be laid with either mortar not exceeding 20 mm below and between them, or 50 mm of compacted grit sand carefully screeded. A wide variety of bonding patterns can be used. However, if the paving is subject to heavy traffic, a pattern should be chosen which directs the traffic across the pavers rather than in the same direction. So therefore, herringbone is the most suitable bond for this. Flexible paving. We can see an example of flexible paving in the diagram opposite. This is the most commonly used method and the most economical because it dispenses with the need for a concrete base slab and bedding mortar. 150 mm of hardcore with 50 mm of grit sand is laid on top. So this is flexible paving. In other words, it doesn't have a 100 mm slab of concrete built into it. A 50 mm screed of compacted grit sand is placed on top of the compacted hardcore. We can see the sand being compacted in the photograph opposite here using a compacting vibrator plate or whacker plate. The pavers are then laid 6 mm higher than the required finished height, and this is to allow for final compaction. Fine sand is then brushed in before the bricks are compacted into position using the whacker plate. Herringbone is the pattern recommended for flexible paving, but there are many different patterns that are used. One of the most common patterns used is is running bond. Conclusion. Expansion joints should be used where the base and the paved surface meets any walling, piers, columns, or in an area that exceeds 6 metres in any direction, and are only required where a concrete base is used. So therefore expansion joints are only used in rigid paving. The reinstatement of paving is when paving has to be lifted and relaid back in the same position. Rigid paving has a concrete slab in it, and flexible paving does not. The average depth of hardcore required for a domestic paved driveway is 150 mm. The average depth of bedding sand required for a domestic paved driveway is 50 mm.